My name is William Hennessy. Everyone calls me Billy. I am a teacher over at North Canyon High School. I'm also a retired lieutenant from the New York City Fire Department. The greatest job in the history of the world. I love that job. I talk about it all the time with my students, and anytime I can integrate doing the right thing into the classroom, I relate it how I learned that from being a firefighter. It's weird. My dad's got a great line he's been telling me since I'm a little kid. Firefighting is the only job where you don't get paid for what you do. You get paid for what you're willing to do. Any guy on any given day, any city in this country, they're willing to lay it all on the line. Same thing with the police department. It's a weird kind of job because it's the only job that demands that type of sacrifice. My best friend married, had his first baby September 8th, 2001, my goddaughter, and he worked in the World Trade Center. And he worked 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, in on Saturdays, never took a day off, been there for years, and he goes in on Monday and says, I had a baby Saturday night, I'm going to take Tuesday and Wednesday off to take her home from the hospital. So she saved his life. He was not in the building because he didn't go to work those 2 days. The change of tours happens at 9 a.m. in every New York City firehouse, and this call for the World Trade Center came in at 8:46. So technically, half the guys were still on duty and the other half were not. Twice the amount of firefighters jumped on the trucks even though they were off duty. And that story never gets reported anywhere, but a fire truck that carries 4 people had 8. A fire truck that carried 5 guys had 10 people on it. And it was something that you're just taught to do. It's a brotherhood. As soon as I heard it come across the news, I jumped in my car. I was at my firehouse in 10 minutes and we were on our way down there. A priest from the church next door to another firehouse where we stopped to pick up guys jumped on the bus with us. We commandeered a city bus. We asked the bus driver to take us down there. And so we're on a bus going down the West Side Highway, and there's fire trucks passing us on the left and right. There's a priest on the bus, and he's giving us an abbreviated version of last rites. It was insane. It was almost out of a movie. And I was freaking out because I started thinking, oh my God, I'm rushing into possibly getting killed today. And that's how it felt. And we pulled up down there and a big cloud of smoke and dirt covered the bus, and we just huddled and prayed. And the priest passed around a ledger. Everyone signed it so that we'd be accounted for. And guys started writing notes to their kids, and the priest said, if anything happens to you today, I'll make sure I deliver this. And I was watching guys do that, and somebody was getting sick in the back of the bus, and that's how the day started. Engine 39 and ladder 16, we share a firehouse. So I was in the ladder, and everyone I've ever worked with in the engine who was working that day, there were 4 guys and a lieutenant, and they were down there initially on the call. They were inside the building. They heard a faint radio message to evacuate, so they start making their way down. The other tower, the tower that got hit second, came down first, the south tower. So they're in the north tower. They're making their way down the stairs. They get stopped by a group of firefighters from ladder 6. They were carrying a woman out that couldn't walk. And they were all trying to get out. And my lieutenant, Jim McGlynn, he's a chief these days, one of the best guys I've ever met, he did a quick head count. And he didn't have 4 guys, he only had 3. And instead of running out like everyone else did in the truest definition of what it means to be a firefighter, he stopped everyone, he turned around and said, let's go back up the stairway and look for this one guy who had already left about a half hour ago, didn't tell anybody, they didn't know he was missing, they just didn't want to leave him behind. When they went into the stairwell, the World Trade Center fell down. and it fell down and it pancaked, and there was so much rubble building up, it pancaked out to the side. And that stairwell where they were in, where those guys from Ladder 6 were carrying the lady down, it was between the second and fourth floor. That particular stairway was spared, and they were trapped for hours. And there was also a lieutenant named Mickey Cross from Engine 16, and the members of Ladder 6, the lady, Josephine Harris, I think her name was. The New York media dubbed her the angel in the stairwell, and these guys all survived the Trade Center falling on top of them. So after 20 minutes or a half hour of crazy town, they were radioing that they were trapped inside the Trade Center, and it wasn't there. And one of the chiefs got on the radio and said, "We're going to come get you." And they put a rescue squad together of really elite, they call them Special Operations SOC, Special Operation Command firefighters. The guys from Ladder 43, which is in our battalion, they were there with the SOC guys. They located where these guys were, and they had to be evacuated up through an 80-foot pile of rubble. You couldn't have caked on dirt and debris and asbestos, which is what the whole World Trade Center was made out of. In their face, pores. Jim McGlynn, when I saw him, he started crying, and he had like these tributaries of tears in this caked on dirt and debris on his face. I got down there after the second tower had just collapsed, and everyone was running out that way. So our bus parked between 15, 20 fire trucks. And the funniest part about it was when we were going down there, the fire trucks are ripping by us on the left and right, and you could literally feel the bus driver taking his foot off the gas pedal. Like, he did not want to get down there quick, and I was fine with that. Like, it was scary. There was a 25 to 35, 40-minute regrouping where people were just trying to get themselves together. We lost our entire chain of command. We lost our chief of department. We lost our every high chief we had perished that day. So we didn't have any leaders left at the time in the top, 20 guys maybe. One of the beams from the World Trade Center had literally sliced a corner of the building off. So you have this 50, 60-story high-rise building missing a whole corner, and it's on fire. Every floor. So you're in Manhattan, you look up and you see 60 floors of fire, and I'm a 28-year-old kid at the time, and there's desks that are on fire falling out from the 60th floor. There's cars that are on fire everywhere. Ruptured gas lines going into buildings. We're going back in. We hook up with Ladder 16. Danny Williams was working that day with all these other guys. We hook up with them. We hook up with all the off-duty guys. We hook up with whoever else is in our battalion and division. So there's different divisions per borough. And we're just trying to get a solid squad together. Thousands of guys are coming in from everywhere. Guys are coming in that are retired. Guys are coming in that are, that have been out of the job for 10, 15 years. Guys are coming in with their kids, and it's crazy. Like, it was really, really insane. We start going back in, and all of a sudden you hear another plane coming in, and I'm freaking out because it's getting louder and louder and louder. And I look up, I don't see anything, but I feel 2,000, 3,000 firefighters running away again. So I'm running as fast as I can. My mother's in my head screaming, "Be careful." My dad, "Be careful." I'm running, and it's getting louder and louder. And I hear my lieutenant, Danny Williams. I'll never forget this. He looks the spitting image of the actor Sam Elliott, the Marlboro Man mustache. And as we're running, he's screaming, "Stop running! Stop running! That's American!" And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, as I'm running, American Airlines, like, this guy's crazy. I don't know what he's talking about. And he's going, "That's American!" And all of a sudden, the sound gets a little bit lighter and lighter. It starts dissipating. And 2,000, 3,000 firemen start slowing down. And we turn, and the only one who didn't run is Danny Williams. He's got his jacket open, and he's pointing. And we look up. It's 2 or 3 F-16s. Somebody ordered air support for us, and they just buzzed down the Hudson River and just let us know that we're protected. And he was trying to say he was a Vietnam vet. He was a Marine that survived the Battle of Quezon, one of like a small number or percentage that survived. And he knew that when you hear that sound, that's an American plane. Like, you have protection, don't run. The rest of that night was just graphic. Just, we walked around and he would find things on the floor and try to gather them together and just keep them all in one area. We'd have a Stokes medical basket and find a leg with a shoe on it, put it in the basket, all night long. And I didn't go home for 2 days. I remember calling my family, the next night in the middle of the night saying, "I'm all right, just down here." This was every New York City firefighter schedule. Go down to the site, get on a bucket brigade. So we were literally hand taking pieces of rubble, steel, putting it in a bucket, and passing it guy to guy for a month, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We were cutting steel. We were crawling. The day George Bush was down there, I didn't know he was coming down there. Nobody told any of us. But I was crawling through a void with a heat sensor, and I was looking for anything through these voids. There were 20, 30-foot voids of steel you can climb through. And I came out, and they were like, "Dude, you just missed, the president was just here." And I'm like, "Nobody told me." I didn't even know. I heard everyone cheering, when he said whatever he said that they were cheering for. Like a month later, there was a lady down there. She was in charge of the rescue dogs, and she was looking for volunteers to get covered back up in the rubble. And I just came out of a void. My bunker gear was ripped. I was cranky. I hadn't eaten. I was tired. And I go, "What does this lady want to cover a fireman in the rubble again?" I didn't know why, and she explained it. It made perfect sense. I was the first one to volunteer. So she said, "I'm in charge of the rescue dogs, and they haven't found anybody alive in a month. And they don't like it. They're depressed. They're shutting down. So if we could cover a couple of you guys with steel and rubble and everything, small stuff, we'll bring the dog in from another site, and he'll find you. And we'll jump up and down, and we'll cheer him on for finding somebody." Now we're finding people. So now we're going to funerals, and we're going to funerals 3 a day, every day. And then you go from a funeral, and you go down and you dig for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, and now you go to your firehouse. And you work a night tour all night. And a normal fireman on a normal day, in a normal year, in a normal time, they want to go on as many runs as they can go on. They want to go to as many fires as they can. They fight to go to fires. They try to get in first. These nights, I remember saying, "I wish the bell wouldn't ring tonight." The funerals were so busy. I remember for Rob Curatolo, it was in Staten Island, and since he was in our company, we had to not only everyone be present, but stand watch at his casket, stand watch at the door to honor his family. And another hearse with flowers and 1,000 cars behind it is passing in the street for another cop or fireman, going to another funeral, and then before I was done with my 15-minute attention at the front door, another one goes by. The fire department volunteered for a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day operation because we lost the most people and we wanted to find our guys and bring them home. That was the most honorable time of my career. That was the most proudest moment of my career. That was the toughest. That was tougher than any fire or anything I've ever been to. And that Father's Day fire was the worst thing I ever experienced up until September 11th. That was gut-wrenching. It still is. It still is. That's a whole other day. In March of 2002, I made some really great friends, guys I was down there with. The captain of my company, Ladder 16, Jimmy Grisma, was on my Ground Zero digging team. That's what I call it. Al Hagan was the captain of 43 Truck. Keith McLaughlin, I love Keith from 39 Engine. You have this bond with these guys and you're finding things. Keith, I remember the first night we were in the pit for 10 minutes. Keith stuck his shovel rake into the mud, and the first try he pulls out a gun belt, and you're just raking through the debris, and then we find the bullet casings, and we're raking through it, and we find the shirt for a police. So the first person in March that we found, I was there when they found this chief's son, and the chief was reminded me of my dad. Strong, big, tough Irish guy. His son passed away that morning, and he did not go home. He did not go home from September 11th. He slept there. He stayed there. I'm talking we're in March, mid-March, 6 months or more, and he's the guy when you look up at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's snowing, he's saying, guys, come on, take a break, it's too cold, get some hot chocolate, get a cup of coffee, and we're looking for his kid. And the morning we found him, the chief wasn't there. The first day he wasn't there. And I think this is God. His mother passed away, and he didn't go to the funeral or the wakes. He only went to the funeral, and I think it was meant to be that way. So we stopped. The guys from the 2nd Battalion were the actual firefighters that found the helmet. And the chief said, he told me if we do find him today to stop. And we called him, the chief called him, and about a half hour later, you look up, you're 80 feet into the earth, which was the lobby of the World Trade Center, was pushed 80 feet into it. You look up, and there's this huge 6'4" strapping guy that I've never seen out of a firefighter uniform. He's in a gray suit, and he's running, comes running down, and he took his kid home. He took his kid out. He dug his kid out with his hands. People don't realize this, but this is actually the mast of a boat. If you can see the boat right here. There's a marina across the street from Ground Zero, and these guys put this flag. I saw him hanging it up. This is my lieutenant, Ray Murphy. Rob Curatolo, this is his shoulder. They're running in. First tower is already down, second tower is still there, and everyone else is running out. These guys passed away that morning. It's my buddy Ray Mayone. He's a retired firefighter, lives in Arizona. Fell off a fire escape in the South Bronx in the late 70s, broke his back, just happened to be in town during 9/11 and put his helmet on and his gear, went down with his guys. That's how massive the site was. You can't really see it too clearly, but these little specks are all firemen. And this rubble is about 80 feet in the air. There's a lot of sick guys right now. I got a ton of stuff. I got this GERD, acid reflux, dysphagia. Every time I eat, I feel like the food's caught from here to here. I think it's like 98% of the firefighters down there. I just had sinus surgery. I was getting sinus infections 4, 5, 6, 7 times a year that were lasting a month, 2 months. Couldn't breathe, so they roto-rooted my sinuses last year. Got a thing on my lung that's 15 millimeters that I've had 4 CAT scans and a PET scan. I got 2 little kids. I'm freaking out. There's guys that are getting sick. Supposedly, if it gets any bigger, they're going to have to cut it out.
How old are you?
45 years old. So, but I don't know. There's hundreds of guys that have passed away. I got a great person. I got to put his picture up in here. Joe O'Toole from Ladder 41. Tooley Joe is his nickname. He spent a year down there driving people in and out of the pit. Young guy, 50s, dead. There's a lot of guys that aren't here anymore. There's hundreds, I don't know the exact number, but there's hundreds of guys that have passed since then that have, they're following everybody for all these weird types of cancer and stuff like that. So, I don't know. I'm religious. I pray. That's all I do. I eat broccoli and garlic and beans and every cancer antioxidant fighting thing you can imagine every day. And